Kay Hevey, you're from Global Safety and Life Care Systems based in Australia, and you're here at InterConstruct to talk about working in remote locations and health and safety concerns. You have a section in your presentation about what occupational safety and health professionals in the 21st century look like that includes a lot of attributes that probably weren't on the list maybe 5 or 10 years ago. Why have you picked out these specific attributes that you think they should have?
Generally, our health and safety professionals today need to be more encompassing of the way the world is changing, our workforce is changing, our global areas are changing where we might do work, so therefore the professional needs to change too. And of course we have global warming, we've got terrorism, we've got all sorts of issues that our system needs to address, so our professionals need to develop with that and make sure our systems are all encompassing and our people trained to manage those. I think as you go through, and if you have moral ethics behind what you do, it's an important factor. And I know many organisations have been let down by professionals they perceive to be giving the right information who may not have. So getting this built up in our repertoire of processes that we use and develop with companies is very important to advance our professional status in the community and in the organisations, and also to get a wider, broad breadth in our educational programs that bring out these people for the workforce in our safety profession.
One of the attributes is emergency strategists, and that's something that you've got particular expertise in, being based in Australia, have a lot of bushfires, lots of quite high hazard things that happen.
We have, and obviously television brings a lot of things out, and then of course people emulate that across, so we do have bombings, we do have terrorist attacks in a minor form, but also they're there. We've had children's centres being held up with guns, and so there are things that we need to do in our systems to develop that we must keep abreast of what happens. And obviously emergency management is now covering things like terrorists, things like natural disasters, and then we've also got the epidemics, which we send people out exposed to others. We need to cover that off, and with a global working community we must be aware of what immunisations are needed as well for those sorts of things, and medical treatments.
So what are the key concerns with people working in remote regions throughout the world?
I guess there's a lot of tropical zones, there's a lot of heat issues in some of the areas they're going to. We also need to cover off on immunisations for those particular regions, so keeping up to date with what's happening on smart traveller sites and so forth, so that we can keep our people immunised, and then obviously update them if they are out on site and things change. There's also the things that may not be aware. I did raise the issue of people in tropical zones working perhaps in a zone where they would wear footwear, but in their off time, when they're away for 6 weeks, they don't. This can lead to issues. There's also the injuries that might occur, or bites that might occur, which become infected within 24 hours if they don't take precautions and know what to look for. So having that next stage of emergency management on tap, immediately ready to run, is important for those people who set up on these sites.
And how much planning can you really do for natural disasters that you really can't control?
Natural disasters are a little bit different in that you don't know where tsunamis and things are going to hit, but obviously there are precincts that do know about earthquake zones. We do know where there's some reactions for volcanic issues. We also know where there will be things like cyclones, tornadoes, bushfires and the like, so we can plan. And I know the recent bushfires in Australia have alerted us. We were saying the message for a long time, but now people who are sending those out to do even home care out in isolated regions need to have things for emergency purposes, and they need strategies and procedures in place now to deal with those days where we've got total fire bans. So that encompasses all sorts of workforces, where we might have people out on road construction in isolated areas, or we might have people doing telecommunications programs out on isolated areas. They all need to have those systems and those emergency processes in place where escalation will occur immediately should it be required.
One of IOSH's key campaigns is all about competency in health and safety, and making sure you get qualified people giving you the advice that you need by law, and get the best campaign. Is there a similar situation in Australia with health and safety professionals?
There is a real push at the moment to get competent people out there, people who really understand what legislation means in a practical term and be able to advise companies appropriately. and to be able to write the systems that the people can do on the ground but still get legal compliance. And so many of them are a little bit frightened of that. Some of them aren't competent enough, just graduated from a diploma or something, and being put in a manager's position is a little bit difficult for them, and they don't have the expertise. So in many cases companies put them in the wrong positions at the wrong time. In other cases people might sort of apply for a position for which they're not totally qualified to do. And then there's a lot of stress on both sides. Yeah. So we need to give organisations confidence in our profession, and I think we're doing things now to encourage that.
Is there an issue of employers not really understanding health and safety in the first place, so they're not sure what they need to look for in a professional?
Absolutely. They do not understand what we do. They find it very difficult. Some of them even want to direct what you do. I mean, you're the professional and they're not. And it becomes quite difficult, particularly when you know the steps you need to take and they're pushing you in another direction. Now that can come about from lack of staff on the ground, high productivity rates requirements, and costings. Obviously, if the funding isn't there, then they'll try and push it through quickly, and they'll spend a lot of money which they'll waste. And so, giving them good advice at the start is so important, and knowing what they need at the start is important.
What do you think practitioners in Australia need to be doing to educate their employers so that they do know what they're looking for?
I think it's very difficult, because I know in a couple of cases some of them are only doing what's called our Cert 4, which is like an entry into IOSH, but they're already health and safety managers. So they're finding now they're in a situation which they find very difficult. They don't have the power to make decisions, and they don't have the courage or the information to push management into doing things. So for them it's very difficult, and I think it creates a lot of disillusion about what our profession's about, sadly.
So what do you think are the key things that health and safety professionals need to do to make sure that managers are understanding health and safety, keeping it on the agenda, and actually driving workplace health and safety standards in their own organisations?
I think on the list I gave you, it's all about being a good mediator, being able to understand what drives business. We have to understand that in our systems, and it is money. We have to make money, particularly in this environment. But I think, having the courage of your convictions, if you say things need to be done, then giving them a strategy of how you can do that with the least impact on their business will get you some inroads into that. But certainly where you're positioned in the company has a great deal of emphasis on how you can perform in that area. And obviously if you're down the bottom of the rung, how can you tell a manager this is what you need to do? And that's what we need to change as a professional organisation through IOSH or the Safety Institute of Australia, to get managers and people to understand that these people need to have that level of input into the structure of the business.
Thanks for your time, Kate.
Thank you.